For LLM subjective question paper solution, I'm going to explain about it. Old questions, Triveni University, which is done for LLM entrance examination. Question number one: legal system is a hierarchy of norms. These norms are backed by state sanction, and ground norm gives legitimacy to all other norms in a legal system. Explain this statement from the point of view of the pure theory of law as propounded by Hans Kelsen. Answer: according to Hans Kelsen, legal system is a hierarchy of norms. These norms are backed by the state sanction, and ground norms gives legitimacy to all other norms in a legal system. This claim of Kelsen is made in his book The Pure Theory of Law. The jurisprudence Kelsen propounded characterized itself as a pure theory of law because it aims at cognition focused on the law alone, and this purity serves as its basic methodological principle. The main challenges for a theory of law, as Kelsen saw it, is to provide an explanation of legality and the normativity of law without an attempt to reduce jurisprudence or legal science to other domains. The law Kelsen maintained is basically a scheme of interpretation. Its reality or objectivity resides in the sphere of meaning. We attach a legal normative meaning to certain action and events in the world. Suppose, for example, that a new law is enacted by the Bagmati legislature. How is it done? Presumably, some people gather in a hall, debate the issue, eventually raise their hands in the response to the question of whether they approve a certain document or not. Count the number of people who say yes and then promulgate a string of words old. Now, of course, the action and events described here are not the law. To say that the descriptions is of the enactment of a new law is to interpret these actions and events in a certain way. But then, of course, the question is why certain acts or events have such a legal meaning and other don't. Kelsen's answer to this question is surprisingly simple. An act or an event gain its legal normative meaning by another legal norm that confers this normative meaning on it. An act can create or modify the law if it is created in accordance with another higher legal norm that authorizes its creation in that way, and the higher legal norm in turn is legally valid if and only if it has been created in accord with yet another higher norm that authorizes its enactment in that way. In other words, it is the law in Nepal that the Bagmati legislature can enact certain types of laws. But what makes this the law? The Constitution of Nepal confers these powers on the state legislatures to enact laws within certain prescribed boundaries of content and jurisdiction. But then, what makes the Bagmati legislature legally valid? The answer is that the legal validity of the Bagmati legislature derives from an authorizations. Granted validity of the Bagmati legislature derives from an authorizations granted by the Constitution of Nepal. What makes the Constitution of Nepal legally valid? Surely not the fact that the Constitution proclaim surely not the fact that the Constitution proclaim itself to be the supreme law of the land. Any document can say that, but only the particular document of the Constitution is actually the supreme law in Nepal. The problem is that here the chain of authorization comes to an end. There isn't a higher legal norm that authorizes the enactment of the original Constitution. At this point, Kelsen famously argued one must presuppose the legal validity of the Constitution At some stage in every legal system, we get to an authorizing norm that has not been authorized by any other legal norm, and thus it has to be presupposed to be legally valid. The normative content of this presupposition is what Kelsen has called the basic norm. The basic norm is the content of the presupposition of the legal validity of the first historical constitution of the relevant legal system. The idea of the basic norm solves three theoretical functions in Kelsen theory of law. The first is to ground a non-reproductive explanation of legal validity. The second function is to ground a norm of the normativity of law. The third function is to explain the systematic nature of legal norms. These three issues are not unrelated. Pure theory of law on hierarchy of norms. The pure theory describes the positive law as an objectively valid order and states that this interpretation is possible only under the conditions that a basic norm is presupposed. The pure theory thereby characterizes these interpretations as possible, not necessary, and present the objective validity of positive law only as conditional, namely conditioned by the presupposed basic norms. According to Kelsen, the pure theory of law is called likewise because it only describes the law and attempts to eliminate from the object of this description everything that is strictly not law. Its aim is to free the science of law from elements. So, Wayne Morrison described the pure theory of law as a theory of positive law. Morrison, page 2 of 11, states as a theory, it is exclusively concerned with the accurate definition of its subject matter. It endeavors to answer the questions what is the law, but not the question what ought to be. It is a science and not a politics of law. As a positivist, Kelsen believed that the existence, validity, and authority of law had nothing at all to do with such non-legal factors as politics, morality, religion, and ethics. Kelsen claimed that his theory is pure based on two factors. First, it distinguishes law from fact. Second, it distinguishes law from morals. Kelsen's views are contradictory to the doctrine of precedence that legal ideas are found in the course of deciding cases. Kelsen's pure theory of law does not reflect circumstances of actual legal system. By the pure theory of law, Kelsen intended to remove all the impure or aligned elements from law and to leave a material that is purely legal. Thus, natural law, moral, religious, social, and other accretion that are not strictly law had to be eliminated. Kelsen classified all these impure or extraneous elements that are not strictly law as the alien elements. Kelsen's theory has been argued in courts in many occasions in revolutionary period within countries where one legal order has been challenged by a revolutionary force. Pure theory has come out. Revolutionary group is argued that a change in the ground norm can actually be observed. Kelsen explained if they succeed, if the old order ceases and the new order begins to the efficacious because the individuals whose behavior the new order regulates actually behave by and large in conformity with the new order, then this order is considered valid order. If the revolutionaries fail, if the order they have tried to establish remain inefficacious, then on the other hand their undertaking is interpreted not as legal law creating act as the establishment of the constitution, but an illegal act as the crime of treason. According to old monarchy constitution and its specific basic norms, from what Kelson says, it seems all that is required for the recognition of the new basic norms as valid is that there is a certain level of support, that is that it is seen as efficacious. 19th century was the hostility towards the natural school of law. Do you agree with this statement? Give your critical opinion. 19th century answer. 19th century was the hostility towards the natural school of law. In the 19th century, there was indeed a notable hostility towards the natural school of law. During this period, several factors contributed to the decline of natural law theories. Social, economic, and political changes, shift from excessive individualism to collectivism, modern skepticism, positivist hostility towards natural law, historical and sociological hostility, Montesquieu view, rejection of natural law in Germany. Let's explain about social, economic, and political changes. Europe experienced significant social, economic, and political transformation. These changes favored reason and rationalism, leading to skepticism about absolute and unchangeable principles. Shift from excessive individuals to collectivism. Tuma. Shift from excessive individualism to collectivism. The prevailing mindset shifted away from excessive individualism toward a more collective perspective. This shift influenced legal thought and challenged the traditional natural law principles. 3. Modern skepticism. The rise of modern skepticism posed challenges to the idea of universally applicable natural law. Skeptics questioned whether there were inherent and immutable principles governing human behavior. Form a positivist hostility towards natural law. The doctrine propagated by Austin and Bentham completely divorced morality from law. The historical researches concluded that social contract was a myth. All these developments shattered the very foundation of the natural law theory. Law lay in prospects like morality, justice, reason. Positivists denounced as being unreal, unhistorical, and non-scientific. The domination of analytical positivism had completely divested law from morality and justice, thus destroying the very foundation of the natural law theory. The main propounders of the positivism, namely Jeremy Bentham, James Mill, and John Austin, condemned natural law in strongest words, calling it absurd, confusing, and nonsense in slits. Austin called it ambiguous and misleading and mere expression of positive morality. 5. Historical and sociological hostility. Montesquieu view, the overall supremacy of natural law had been dispelled by Montesquieu empirical theory that laws are creations of climatic, social, topography, environment, customs, commerce, etc. He denounced the natural law, holding that it was vague, confusing, and contrary to empirical and observable realities. David Hume, 1711 to 1776, rejected the theory of natural law, alleging that it was vague, obscure, and contrary to empirical approach to law. The theory propounded by the great French philosopher Auguste Comte denounced natural law theory as false, non-scientific, and based on supernatural beliefs. Rejection of natural law in Germany. In Germany, Darwin's Origin of Species, 1860, and Herbert Spencer Social Statistics shattered the foundation of natural law, as it was realized that the 19th century complex problem needed a practical and realistic approach which the natural law theories could not provide, as it was based on sheer idealism and morality which did not suit the needs of contemporary society. Besides, the 18th century has been called the age of reason, with a secularism and rationalism. Natural law came under attack. The idea of a universal natural law common to all mankind was vigorously refuted by Vico 1668-1774, Harder 1744 to 1803, and Montesquieu 1689 to 1755. The further reason for hostility were the 18th century was also the period of the Scottish Enlightenment, 1711 to 1776. 1711 to 76, Adam Smith 1723 to 90, 90. Ferguson 1723 to 1816, Miller 1735 to 1801 were a group of intellectuals dedicated to studying society scientifically. They rejected social contractarian explanations of society, whom argued that it was government which made promises possible, and argued for accountable government. The natural law theory suffered a setback in the wake of 19th century development and pragmatic approach to law by the positivists. The industrial revolutions and scientific discoveries had created an environment which was not conducive to natural law philosophy. The doctrine of laissez-faire, which favored minimum interference of the state in the economic and political activities of individuals, was weakening the power and the authority of the sovereign, which could be restored only by a stable, deterministic legal theory instead of fluid and reflex theories of natural law. The propounders of analytical positivism, notably Bentham and Austin, rejected natural law on the ground it was ambiguous and misleading. Bentham called it a simple nonsense, since absolute equality and absolute liberty were repugnant to the existence of the state. It was the age of defending the natural status quo and natural conditions as slaves by nature. Dwight Scott versus John F. A. Stanford. That for that age, a philosopher, lawyer, and people have utilized natural thought to boost or strengthen revolutions or movement against arbitrary or repressive government as well as laws. American and French Revolution can be presented to confirm that adduced how rights have been claimed and legitimated even against the organized authority as and so on were central element for the politics and law rather than exercise of power and domination. Influence of natural and inalienable rights, separation of power and rule of law has success to institutionalize the supremacy of law, then particular king or man, which secularizes, democratize, and extend the liberal movement throughout the British, USA, and France. Limited and constitutional government has been attained with the use of principles and elements of natural law. Dred Scott versus John F. A. Stanford was a landmark decision of the United States Supreme Court that ruled that African Americans were not and could never be citizens of the United States. The decision also held that the U.S. Constitution did not extend American citizenship to peoples of black African descent, and thus they could not enjoy the rights and privileges the Constitution conferred upon American citizens. The decision was overturned by the 13th and 14th Amendments to the Constitution, which abolished slavery and declared all persons born in the United States to be citizens of the United States. Despite this decline, it's important to note that natural law theory has experienced revival and renowned renewed interest in the contemporary era, especially in response to totalitarianism and the global focus, especially in response to totalitarianism and the global focus on human rights. The tension between natural law and other legal theories continued to shape legal discourse and philosophical debates. Thank you. God bless you all. Two question I explained about it with answer. Hope आजको LLM सफल रहोस्. God bless you all.